just those words, and they say, "Oh, were you up to see the Bears? And, what's the latest on Lily and Hope?" And I hear that story all over the place. So there is a tremendous following, and it's all good for Ely. It's just, let me mention one other thing first. Then last year, people wanted to get together to meet each other because they felt like they were friends on Facebook. Over 300 of them came here for the first annual Lily Pad picnic. And, you know, where Lily lives, Lily's pad is Ely. So over 300 of them came, and the only place we could manage to get in was Kawishwe Campground to hold the picnic. Well, this year, I just talked to the mayor a couple days ago, was excited that they have now reserved Whiteside Park for it, because they had to turn away so many people from the picnic last year. They want to have one at least twice as big. And what that means is they usually come early and stay late. They don't want to drive this far for a 3-day picnic. So that means they're scheduling outfitters, restaurants, resorts, motels, and shops. They shop like mad. Yes, ma'am.
Somebody told me that some stores sold out all their chairs for people for that picnic.
Hey, cool. I believe it. I believe it. I mean, afterwards, merchants were saying more of that. And it all depends on the radio-collared bears, you know? Yes, ma'am.
Deb has reserved already for Lily Pad next year. I'm wondering how we could sell the issue about the sulfide mining threat to all these fans, because obviously what affects human health in this area is going to affect bear health as well. And if there were someone, I don't know if someone's done this because I haven't been following on Facebook, but that would be a step to take, I would think, informing people of what's being talked about in that area.
Yeah, that's a good thing, and we should start a whole Facebook page about that, actually. And that is what we're recommending to them, because with 200,000 people, there could be 200,000 issues that each one wants to have, and so the Facebook page was getting kind of taken over by hunters and anti-hunters at each other's throats, and the page is really for people to learn about bears, and we try to avoid controversial topics like hunting. And whenever we talk about it, whenever I talk about it on there, I write in support of hunting, that bears can't live everywhere. The purpose of hunting is to control the bear numbers to that which people will tolerate, because if you go beyond what they'll tolerate, they don't care about the law anymore. Fear takes over, and they'll do anything to get rid of the bears, any cruel method like before hunting, which was gut shooting, poison, trapping, and they're not really religious about checking the traps, so it's a long suffering way to die. And back in '71, I had seen enough of that, and I worked with hunting groups, the legislature, and the media to try to elevate bears to big game status in Minnesota. And then the DNR asked me to write the initial bear hunting regulations, and I thought, okay, we want to write them to minimize the wounding loss, the biggest problem. And so that's what I did, and still is like that today. I mean, limit the weapons to something that can actually kill a bear, you know, while plinking at them with 22s and stuff. And so, and there's still problems with some of that, but I don't want to get into it here. But so I always come out in support of hunting, that you have to control the population to a certain level, but the education like we're doing is what can raise that level, the number that they will tolerate. fact, the bear population in Minnesota, since we went to hunting and strong education, after my 40 years of doing my best to educate the public, the bear population has quadrupled. Used to be less than 6,000, and now right now they're saying around 20,000, but they used to say around 30,000, which I think was wrong, but it's fits.
Lynn, compare your technology of your first bear tracking experiment to today.
Compare? Yes, thank you, good question. That's a softball question. I started out, I had the benefit of being trained by the pioneer of bear research. And he showed me how they did it then. That's how I started. Too cruel. And that's why I didn't mention his name. And that's with steel jaw traps, go out and catch a bear, punch holes in it, you know, and with teeth in the traps, and broken, you know, toes pulled out, and broken feet and all that, broken legs, and no, that's beyond me. So then he was nice enough to bring me Wally Dayton. Meanwhile, had shot a grizzly bear, and then thought, oh, I think that we should know more about bears. So he went to the University of Minnesota and said, if you can find the right grad student, I would fund a project to learn more about Minnesota's bears. And I was the one that they got, and so I went to foot snares. I stuck my own hand in a foot snare and felt it snap tight on it and pulled on it a bit. Well, I would do this. Well, pretty soon I realized that's not the way to go either. After a couple hours of them pulling on it, it's so tight, it cuts off the blood in the veins on the surface, but the arteries are still, the deep arteries are still pumping blood till it's like a balloon. And I saw that a few times, and then it traumatized the skin so bad that it, you release them and it looks fine. But you catch that bear a couple days later, a big cut, all that skin is disintegrated, and it's a big cut all the way around their paw. I didn't want to see that. So then I went to culvert
You're given a
traps.
misapprehension, or a little bit misrepresenting that, Lynn.
I know what you've written about it, and I know what you've written since then. And we can talk about it, but I stand by it.
But it doesn't happen all the time. And it's a minority of the time that's terrible. I agree.
Yes,
But
okay.
it doesn't happen
We're on the
all
same
the
page
time.
there.
Yeah.
We're on the same page there. It happens enough that I didn't want to be part of it.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
Okay. Because, see, Roger Powell's a longtime bear researcher, and he's tried to make ways for this to be less traumatic for the bears, with springs and stuff incorporated into the cable that's tied to the tree. But like he says, you know, still too much for either one of us to like. So I went to culvert traps and barrel traps. I hadn't gone to those in the first place because I saw in the former state where I was learning how to catch bears and stuff, the grill work on the end to give circulation of scent and to get it out so they come, and to make it cooler in there when they're in there. They grab the steel rebar, twist, and see canines go flying. I didn't want to be part of that. And then, okay, so I went to barrel traps with all the holes too small for a bear to be able to grab it and break its teeth. But they become ovens. So we didn't trap if the temperature is over a certain thing. Always set them in the shade, check them twice a day. We're the only people in the country that were checking traps twice a day. Everybody else is once a day, I believe, unless you know anybody who does. So,
Well, we've done 2 a day,
okay,
but
good.
we didn't start that way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, after people reinvent the wheel, each researcher reinvents the wheel, doesn't ask anybody else. He wants to be the guy that knows how to do it. And it's just, it's terrible. And then pretty soon they see all the damage they're doing to the bears, and they try to think of something better, but a lot of wasted, bad stuff. So then we went to, well, we check them twice a day, and that was pretty good. But what you can't beat is no captures at all. And now everything we do is trust-based. And what we do is we win the trust of a bear. And the tranquilizing is bad too, because when you tranquilize a bear, there's a percentage chance that you're going to kill it. It's not like in a hospital where you stick a needle in and draw back a little bit before you start injecting to see if you got blood. You just got to get that in there quick before they jump away. So that means a percentage of the time you mainline the bear. That whole drug dose goes right to the brain and dead. So I didn't like tranquilizing, I didn't like trapping. So my 40 years has been kinder and gentler research. And then if you're doing something different than somebody else, then I was one of the main pioneers in all the old methods. Because I'm an old guy, 71, I started in 67, and much of the stuff, I was lucky to get in at the University of Minnesota, where they had radio collars. They were the pioneer. Them and a couple others across the country were ground floor at that time on telemetry. So the methods that are used today were stuff that pretty much I pioneered and is being used around the world. And because it's used so widely, everybody thinks that's the way it has to be done, and they're not open to a new thing. And so you can imagine the criticism I get for each new method. And so, but they got to be there, they got to see what happens to the bears to know what's right. So then I thought, boy, the best thing is if we could just do it without it. And along the way, I was learning that bears aren't the ferocious animals we once thought. And they have personalities. Everything fits under a bell-shaped curve, but most of them are bears that we could work with. And so I started trying to gain their trust. Touch is a universal language. I could communicate to them that I meant no harm. Pretty soon, a percentage of the bears would accept me until I could put a radio collar on it, walk with it in the woods. That's a whole other thing beyond, they get used. Habituation is not the general thing that most people think. It's location specific, situation specific, and to an extent, individual person specific. They're smart animals. I mean, the idea that if you feed a bear at a cabin, then they're going to learn, oh, cabins mean food. Let's go to all the cabins. That's one of the things that we're studying at our study area now. It's the third study area, and this one selected because people have been